everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into a common issue with the 68 RFE transmission, problems with the solenoid switched valve. If you're experiencing harsh shifts, slipping, or erratic behavior, this could be the culprit. Stick around as we break down the repair process step by step. First, we have to take apart the T25 Torx bits that hold the valve body halves together. There's about 35 of them, lots of bolts that need to be taken out. And then we have to separate the valve body halves so that we can gain access to the solenoid switched valve. And we're going to very carefully pry the pieces apart. Make sure we don't mar or break anything. This is the valve body spacer plate. We're going to go ahead and get everything cleaned and get access to our solenoid switched valve here. This is a 5 check ball valve body. Make sure you take note of where the check balls are and how many you have, because it varies per year. And we're going to go ahead and move our check balls over here. We're going to put some new ones in when we get this thing put back together. So we're going to go ahead and make sure that we are inspecting everything that we can and checking everything when we take these valve bodies apart. They are notorious for issues. So just make sure, like during the cleaning process, we're going to clean and check everything. That is where the solenoid switch valve is located, and that is the valve that we're going to be taking out and replacing. You got to take your end plug retainer off. And the only way you can do that is taking the valve body apart and moving it up and out of the groove that it's in. And you're going to do it very carefully with a pick or a screwdriver. It's just a little tiny plastic retainer. It's not that hard to get out. Once you get the retainer out of there, we're going to go ahead and get our valve and our 3 plugs out. You want to pry on it very gently inside the valve body channels, and your plugs and your valve will fall right out. Make sure you take your time when doing this. There's no rush. Make sure that the valve doesn't bind and you're not prying excessively on getting it out. There's 1 plug, 2 plugs, and there's our valve. 3 plugs. So we got our 3 plugs and our valve. Then we're going to go ahead and clean our valve body up and start the reaming process for the new valve. Now when doing this, you need to make sure you measure original valve to make sure that you get the right kit. There are 2 options for valve sizes, and our valve is a 453, which is a very common valve size, and that will determine which kit we use because it's not the same for both sizes. And now we're going to go to this parts cleaner that I have. Here's our new part, our new kit from Transgo. It's a great kit. I use this on all my 68 RFE valve bodies. And always make sure you look at your instructions. It does matter which way you put the reamer in the drill. You want to make sure that you read through everything carefully. It does say to use WD-40 as like a cutting oil, so we're using WD-40 in our parts washer to help us get this valve reamed out. Now this is our reamer. It's an extremely important tool to have when you're doing this because you have to oversize the bore. It does matter which way it goes in the drill chuck, and this is a deburr tool that is also super important. We'll get to that after we get it all reamed out. Now basically you just want to orient this so that you've got constant fluid flowing through the solenoid switch valve bore while your drill is reaming out the hole that you've got there. Okay, so we've got our parts washer pushing WD-40 into the hole. Now, when you're reaming this out, you want to go as slow as possible, and the drill chuck will kind of pull it in on its own, so you don't have to put a bunch of force on it. You have to be very careful when doing this because if there's any issues, it'll cause a lot of weird problems within the valve body. The most common problem that I've seen with reaming these out where people don't do it correctly is when you go to put it in drive, the torque converter clutch will stay on and it'll kill the engine basically. So now we're going to use our deburr tool. We're going to get rid of any of the burrs that are inside of this channel here. Make sure that you go in and out several times, getting rid of any of the metal that's inside of this valve bore you've got here. And you want to make sure that the valve moves freely, so any material needs to be moved out of there. Okay, so now we're going to get our new solenoid switch valve in. As always, make sure that you're paying attention to the instructions. There's a special way that you have to put the valve in. It's pretty cut and dry. So we're going to go ahead and open up our package and get all of our parts laid out on the bench and start putting the solenoid switch valve together. Okay, so first you have this little return spring that you have to put in. It goes on the end of the solenoid switch valve, like so. And then it goes into the valve body. But first you have to glue it in because you have to put it in spring first, and you don't want the spring to come out of the groove. So we're going to glue it in with some trans gel. Okay, so it doesn't come out. And then we're going to go ahead and stick it in the valve body and make sure it moves freely. It should be pretty easy to do. It should just slide in. And it just slid in perfect. So then we're going to go ahead and get our plugs put in, and we're going to make sure that it moves freely. All these plugs, they can't bind. You got to make sure that they move freely. You may have to kind of push them in a little bit, but they should go in and spring back with no issues. A sticking solenoid switch valve could be a very bad scenario to get yourself into. You're going to have a lot of shift issues if you've got a sticking solenoid switch valve, along with a P0871 code or burnt clutches. So make sure that everything moves smoothly. We're just going to continue putting our plugs in, making sure everything works the way it's supposed to, and then we're going to start reassembling the valve body. Okay, so we got our plugs in. I'm going to push on the plugs, and if you can see that it springs back perfectly fine, it doesn't get binded up or stuck, so that tells me everything is working the way it should be. And we're going to get our end plug retainer put back in, and then we can start putting the valve body back together. Perfect. Perfect, perfect. Alright, so now we're going to start putting our valve body back together. But first we're going to check our valves, make sure everything moves freely. There aren't any other valve issues in this valve body. And this is a close-up of the new solenoid switch valve and its new bore. Nice and shiny right here, solenoid switch valve circuit. And this is just showing you that it moves freely back and forth. Okay, so now we're going to get our 5 check balls put back in place. remember, make sure you put them in the right spot because there are more than 5 check ball spots in this valve body. It's always good to consult service information when you're doing something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 check balls. Perfect. We're also going to add another upgrade to this valve body. We're going to put some valve body gaskets in between the spacer plate. This valve body had a cross leak issue, so these gaskets will help with any kind of cross leak issues because from the factory they didn't come with a gasket in between the plate halves. As always, make sure all your parts are clean. Line everything up, before you get it all put back together. Just make sure everything looks right. But this is a great upgrade for the 68 RFE valve bodies. If you wanted to go a little bit further with the upgrades, you could get a billet channel plate. That is a great upgrade. Also, you want to use the gaskets with that as well. Beautiful. So now we're just going to stack our valve body halves back together with our new gaskets, and then we're going to put all of our bolts in and start torquing it down. And make sure that your valve body channel plate is on the dowel pins correctly. I always push it together by hand before I flip it over, because if not, then your check balls can come out and that'll cause a little bit of a mess. Okay, so now we're going to put in our 35 T25 Torx bolts, and we're going to be torquing them. I like to use an impact or a drill to kind of get all these bolts ran down, because it does take a very long time to get all these bolts down before you start the torquing process. So go ahead and get them all hand tight, quotation marks, and then we'll start torquing the process. Okay, so we're going to be torquing these bolts at 40 inch-pounds. And just take your time, make sure you get all the bolts. It's easy to miss a few. I always go, after I torque everything, I always double check all the bolts to make sure that I torque them all. There have been times where I've rebuilt a transmission where somebody's been in there and they've missed a few bolts or something. That could easily cause a cross leak in this valve body, so just make sure you get all the bolts torqued. "1,000 bolts later." Lots of torquing, guys, but it's important. You got to make sure you torque everything. So we're going to go ahead and get our accumulator pistons put back in. This customer's did not go for the upgraded accumulator piston plate, so we're just going to put the stock one back in. I always like to lube the accumulator piston seals and the bores just to make everything seal a little bit better on assembly until the transmission fluid gets in there to lube everything up. Perfect. Got our accumulators in. Now we're going to put our plate back on. We're going to make sure that we torque these as well. These accumulator plates were kind of weak from the factory, and they've been known to blow out the accumulators if you get too much pressure in there. So make sure you don't strip these bolts out. Yes, I ran him down with an impact, but I didn't use any ugga-duggas, so it'll be okay. Okay, this is the last step before we get the valve body installed into the vehicle, so we're just going to make sure that we torque all of our accumulator plate bolts. Pretty easy process, guys. It's not that hard to do. We got our valve body put together. Now we just got to get it installed into the vehicle. Make sure you torque your valve body bolts. Everything looks good. If you guys like the video, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Thanks. Have a good one.